Hello and welcome to New Game Plus for another week. I am Donald and I'm joined by Jason.
Hello.
For a show called New Game Plus, do you think that we wouldn't do that much Japanese games?
Yeah, no, it was bad naming. New Game put us at... because yes.
We continue the Japanese train this week.
The industry continues the Japanese trend. It's not our fault. Like, every notable game, bar maybe 3, for the last 2 months, month and a half, been Japanese.
So Monhan, Yakuza, and this week we talk about Dynasty Warriors 9.
Which came out early, to be fair, someone broke embargo. But yeah, Dynasty Warriors 9, we also have 7 Deadly Sins. So you want to go full anime.
Yeah.
7 Deadly Sins, of course, being the Netflix quote-unquote anime. And so yeah, it's another big Japan week.
That could also just be by virtue of it being the first quarter of the year. It's just that time to
getting all those sales
Japanese
out,
game to shine.
Because Japanese financial year ends on the end of March, so that's why they all put a lot of their games into this period, pump them out, get them out there. But it's also because it is a fairly open area, so it's a good chance for them to actually shine.
Because it's not like, say, November where you're crowded out by Call of Duty, or it's not like now October when you're crowded out by now Red Dead Redemption 2.
Correct. And so, the old month used to be May for Rockstar, but apparently they've changed that up and they're going to October this year, so...
Yeah.
Who knows? The other things we also have, obviously, Jackie's having a chat with Liam Esler about some stuff.
Yep.
We also have a chat to the CouchWarriors boys about that big event, the middle of the year. Speaking of May, damn, that should have been my segue. Battle Arena Melbourne.
You burnt it. It's gone. We have to cancel BAM now.
What? Okay,
no, let's not. Yeah, we talked about Battle Arena Melbourne 10, 11.
10.
10.
10. Yeah, so much to do. But for now, anime. Now, it's got to be said, 7 Deadly Sins is one of those animes / series that I came onto reasonably late in the piece. And it's great fun. Like, it's a great jolly world with enough serious undertones to kind of really twist it on its head occasionally. So the hope is that the game comes out and it's going to be, if it's even half as good as the anime series, it should be great. Well, I got some bad news. 1, Shane's here, and 2, we're about to talk about 7 Deadly Sins and Dynasty Britannia.
That's a good joke.
That was a great segue.
Because I'm also here.
So, 7 Deadly Sins.
Talking about disappointments.
Yes, well,
I'm also
spoils
here.
Lol. Yeah, so what are your thoughts on it, Shane? Obviously there've been a great batch of anime games, Attack on Titan, One Piece. There've been a great few... the anime games have become one of those genres where licensed titles can actually be good. So the hopes are that 7 Deadly Sins is.
Hopes are crushed.
Right.
Hopes are meant to be crushed.
Oh, okay.
That's another thing. But has a fair amount of potential to it. That's the more disappointing thing. The disappointing thing is that there are a few elements there that I actually really, really enjoyed, but then was totally drawn out by
everything else around
it, and just the combat that was not that fleshed out in comparison to some of the other elements that were slightly nicer.
Yeah. So I guess that is the thing. So obviously the big part of AOT is how well they replicate the experience of zipping behind the Titans and chopping them. One Piece, how all the Hakis interact and things like that. So there's obviously been time and energy put into how these things work.
Yeah.
It sounds like 7 Deadly Sins, that's where it's lacking.
It's basically a very generic action adventure game, but then not really had any kind of depth input to it, except for this one system where it's got these traps where you destroy an object in the world itself, and maybe a random crystal may spawn, and that crystal represents what type of trap it is, like color of trap. Yeah. So green is usually a healing trap, then earth colored, earth trap, then other kind of colors would deal different type of damage. That system worked really, really interestingly in the combat. The only problem is that it just didn't mesh well with the rest of the game, and the rest of the game is not actually that fun either.
Yeah.
So they have not journey quests, but collecting quests where you've got Elizabeth, the main heroine, I guess. She has no attack power really. She can send out Hawk to distract enemies or damage enemies, but herself, she basically runs around and collects things.
Nice.
So there's literally collection quests. Then there's also the characters which basically all feel the same, except for Diana, which is the giant. She has a light attack and a heavy attack, but they only do one thing, and it's
no combos or anything.
It's basically that old Godzilla game where it was it's basically that. And that wasn't fun.
Yeah. So I guess that is the hard part. Maybe it's the diverse cast that gives it that issue. But I mean, with Barn and Meliodas and stuff like that, I mean, even they're so different enough that you would think they would have a little bit of fun. Like, say what you want about Koei Tecmo when they do a themed Muso game. They have a bit of fun with the character, the way they fight and stuff.
There's a lot of variation that could have been done to a lot of the characters, but they all just felt the same because the combat system didn't allow them to have any variations. There's like specials that that any character can do and stuff like that, and they're different, but you still don't actually feel like they're actually impacting the combat system.
Is it still worth grinding through for like a story or anything like that, or it's kind of like
not really, because also the facial animations are not fun either.
Right. So it seems like all the money's gone to the Narutos and the One Pieces of this world, and unfortunately, Seven Deadly Sins has been left behind in that grand scheme of things.
I hope that we may see like a second kind of game, and they just step it up really massively.
Yeah.
Like they either go down the angle of like a Muso, or they go really well down on like the dueling angle that they had. Like, so there's like Muso battles and there's duel battles also. It just, they didn't focus on one angle, and it just felt like it was a disappointment. That's basically the best way to put it.
Well, that's a shame because the series is great. So, like you say, hopefully if there is a second one, they can fix it. They pick up the pieces a little bit better.
So the government's recently put out a response publicly to the Senate inquiry into the state of game development in Australia. And I brought on Liam Esler from the Game Developers Association. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, absolutely, anytime.
So I figured we'd talk a little bit about what the response has been and why game devs in particular aren't super pleased with the response. So I guess to sort of fill in the context, would you mind speaking a little bit to what the Senate inquiry was for originally?
Sure. So in 2015, Senator Ludlam actually decided that the state of the games industry from a government perspective in Australia wasn't ideal, and he felt that the government needed to take a stronger hand in supporting the industry. And so the way that he did this was by starting a Senate inquiry. He put together a panel of different senators and ministers from across the political spectrum.
Right.
And then they went all around the country and talked to game developers from every stripe and compiled a report that was then filed to Senator Fifield's office.
And so that was in that was in early sort of 2016, I believe.
Yes.
And so the industry was waiting for a response for quite a while after that.
It was over 600 days,
Over 600 days. The original deadline was, I believe it was in 2016, but it's long past that.
We slid past that somewhat, yeah.
The response from game devs to the government's response from Senator Fifield was that they weren't particularly interested in supporting the industry as much as they would have liked. I imagine that Senator Ludlam would have liked.
Yes.
So what was the sort of overall sort of tone of that response?
So the government's response was lacking in some areas, let's say.
Right.
So the government decided that they agreed with several of the points that the inquiry raised. There was one point that they 100% agreed with, but then felt that the industry should handle.
Right.
And there were a couple of points that they felt like would be worth exploring. Plus, at the end of the report, the National Broadband Network came up, and apparently everything's going great. So it's good to know, because I do know a couple of developers who have to mail USBs to each other instead of actually using the Australian internet, which is unfortunate.
That's a reality that we live with. So one of the bigger I guess reasons for why the inquiry was begun originally was because there was federal government funding from Screen Australia into game development costs. That was at a certain point revoked in some sense?
Yes, it was axed when the new government came in.
And so when the inquiry was like, hey, maybe we should reinstate this, their response was more or less, no, there are other initiatives that you can sort of explore. And what were they? Like, was it more or less like other initiatives for the IT industry, for other innovation industries?
There are some few sources of funding that the games industry can tap into.
Right.
But most of those aren't actually relevant to a lot of what we do.
Okay.
Which is unfortunate, and it makes it difficult as game developers in Australia to sort of begin and start up, because we have a very different business model to traditional startups. And while the government acknowledges this, they've struggled to find ways to address it.
And so, outside of obviously we've got other initiatives, we've got other stuff nationally that you might be able to tap into. As far as what Film Victoria has previously provided, that's really been a catalyst for a lot of what's happened in Melbourne, I imagine.
Yeah,
Is that what you've
absolutely.
seen from your perspective?
Yes, absolutely. Film Victoria's support of the Victorian industry has been exceptional from the get-go. And they knew what they were doing when they decided they were going to support the industry. And as a result, about 40% of the Australian industry is now based in Victoria. But from that example, now we have other state governments that are beginning to seriously look at games.
Yeah, so it's like the area in like the space in South Australia that's recently been started, and then we're seeing Screen Queensland starting to kickstart this stuff. So I guess
Screen Tasmania as well.
Screen Tasmania as well, yeah. So like outside of the state funding, which is obviously a huge part of why there's 40% of the industry in Victoria, do we necessarily, like, for people that aren't super familiar with why we would need federal funding, why should that be there if the states are already trying to, like, kind of taking care of that?
So the states tend to be really good for startup funding. So to start your project out, to build your prototype so that then you can get larger amounts of funding.
Right.
And they're really good for that smaller stuff. But we have a number of studios in Australia right now that are at the point where they need more significant capital in order to expand.
Right.
They need enterprise level funding, which is part of what the original like government fund included.
That was there, yeah.
But unfortunately it was axed. And so we now have this small group of companies that are on the verge of becoming something much bigger, something much better, and employing a lot more people. But they're not able to do that without more capital. So what would be ideal is if like Senator Fifield and the Office of Arts and the Communication of the Arts, were to put together some kind of fund that that addressed some of the problems with the original fund,
Right.
And looked at this issue in a new way.
So I guess where do we go from here? Like, if a big part of this was obviously the Game Developers Association sort of working with the government and trying to help them appreciate the gravity of the situation. Is that really, like, are we still more or less on square one on that front? Like,
No,
does
absolutely.
this response
So,
change much?
Look, this response was really disappointing for a lot of people in the industry. It was certainly not what we all hoped for. And that sucks. That's really unfortunate. However, there have been ongoing discussions between the Game Developers Association of Australia and Senator Fifield's office and many, many state offices for quite some time. And the report is one part of a broader strategy that includes much more than that. And these conversations will continue. From what I've heard, they've been fairly positive, which is really exciting. So, you know, we're hopeful. Like, and I know that Tony Reid at the GDA is incredibly hopeful that we're going to see something more over the next year or two, as particularly when we have the government changeover. Hopefully something can be done after that point.
So, you know, sort of watch this space, see what comes of it.
Watch
in
this
the coming
space,
years?
see what comes of it. You know, mail in to all of your local politicians, ask them to support the games industry so that we can make the best games in the world.
Now, every May, the customary New Game Plus Battle Arena Melbourne episode comes out, and every year we go to the event just expecting this great turnout of fighting game community and all of these different communities coming together in the one spot to enjoy themselves and have fun playing the game. BAM 10, yes, BAM 10, so yeah, obviously the 10th one, is coming up this year in May. I've brought the CouchWarriors boys in to have a quick chat about it and see what they think about it. Darren, James, thank you for joining us. Darren, of course, the president. James, our head Street Fighter TO. How you guys going?
Not too bad. Thanks for having us.
So, BAM 10. Obviously, we've done BAM 9. We've done all that. We've pulled our hair out, but we ran an awesome event. BAM 10. Why should people be excited?
So, BAM 9 was our first foray into having something at a very, very large scale. Obviously, being in the Melbourne Convention and Exhibition Centre.
Yep.
BAM 10 takes everything that we've learnt within the last year, consolidating it and putting on the biggest show that we have ever put on to date. We have a lot of things planned. We have a lot of everyone is working really, really hard. We're about just over 2 months away.
Yep.
So there's still a lot of things to be done, but we're all very, very much looking forward to what we can do in making sure that everyone has not a great event, the best event they've ever been to.
That's the spirit. And from a tournament side, James, like, are you excited yet worried about the headache of helping run a community like Street Fighter?
Yeah. I mean, it's always the case. Like, there's no better opportunity to get all the players from interstate or potentially internationals as well. And TOing a tournament like this is like one of the best parts of being a part of the group. Like, it's just the best chance to see everyone in one place, catch up with friends that you meet at other majors throughout the year. But BAM is definitely the one I've been looking forward to.
So what? And obviously, community is a big part of what CouchWarriors does, and that's half the reason we're involved with you guys. It's also there's some professional acknowledgement of BAM's efforts. So Capcom are coming to the party, Tekken are coming to the party. Like, what do you think that adds to the event?
I think that the people who work towards a unifying vision in terms of trying to put on an event like BAM are all very, very they all know how important it is to everyone, and they all have stake in their own communities. But at the end of the day, all these different communities coming together and saying, all right, we're going to put this one giant flagship event on, and everyone is going to come together, and everyone's going to have a good time, and everyone's going to show the world what their community can do.
Guys, thank you very much, and God, 2 months.
2 months. That's a lot of work to do.
Bring it on.
Son Goku Musou, Dynasty Warriors, perhaps one of the most divisive series in gaming, believe it or not. Lots of people don't like it because they see it as samey and it's always the same stuff, blah, 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 blah. We would argue that those people haven't played them as often as they think they have, and there's more to it. But that's a conversation for a different day, because we're discussing Dynasty Warriors 9, a brand new iteration of the series, which is a full 3D, large-scale kingdom world. I'm joined by Shaney. We're going to discuss exactly... So, I guess the important thing to cover is that in Dynasty Warriors 9, every couple of years, there is one game that kind of changes a lot of the mechanics. So it was Dynasty Warriors 6, changed a lot of stuff, and it was a little bit broken.
Yeah.
So then they fixed it for Empires, and they fixed it for 7, they fixed it for that. Dynasty Warriors 9 is very much that.
Very much. It's basically a totally new system. They're exploring a lot of different things. The combat's totally different. Like the combo systems, they've got these almost different type of attacks that you can do with I think kind of almost, it's a square gate almost in a sense. Like there's up means something different, down means something it's very much different than the old light heavy kind of combo system that they've had for a while.
Yeah,
now.
square triangle, square triangle, square triangle, Musou. Yeah.
And this is very much a different combo system. It's very much different gameplay system. Because
and that's not even going to the strategy.
That's not even going to strategy. That's not even really going to the open world.
Yeah.
Open world, it makes everything totally different. The problem is...
real life goes at...
I'm this is really, really good sounding. And you know what? If it actually really all worked, it would be really, really good. But...
Yeah, if you're playing this on a PS4 Pro, you're probably going to have a good time. It's well optimized, it looks great, it plays okay. If you're playing it on PC or vanilla PS4, you're going to have a bad time.
And that's a good way to put it, because a bad time is an ensured thing to happen. Because the game is not well optimized for PC. It's not well optimized for PS4 normal, which that's not a good thing.
They've got form for it, of course, with the 3DS stuff. But I think it does come down to one of those things where they know people buy it anyway because it is a new element to it, and they also know that Sony fans are usually the hardcore fans they're going for will have PS4 Pros.
I disagree, because I don't really have seen that many real intensive Dynasty Warrior games that in recent times. Dynasty Warriors 8 worked really, really well on a low-end PC. The PC port was actually
pretty good. Yeah. Neo's the other one that comes to mind. And granted, that's Team Ninja, not Omega Force. But still, Koei Tecmo can put out good PC ports.
They've done pretty well recently. And even some of the Atelier and stuff like that. Yeah, they've done actually really well for their PC ports and other optimization. But when they're going for this one, they haven't. And it's disappointing because the rest of the game is really, really fun.
The mechanics are great. The strategy elements are awesome. Like it actually in the other one, it was basically just the strategy of the map. In this is the strategy of the map.
The map world almost there.
So is it worth defending this tower? Is it worth attacking this place, knowing you will lose another area? So it really does come down to how much you want to get out of that. If you're on a PS4 Pro, like I said, I think you're going to have a good time. But I think if you aren't, it's tough to recommend as it sits now, whether they patch it or whether we have to wait for Empires or whatever the case may be. Like, yeah.
That said, like, if they do patch it or if they do release a version that is fixed, let's just say, really jump on this, because this is a totally new, like, Dynasty Warriors, like, experience.
Yep.
Like, this is totally different than what you've ever played before. And it's fun when you can actually play it.
Jason, you mentioned the optimization issues that were prevalent in Dynasty Warriors 9, but it's not the first time that Koei Tecmo has done this.
No, so I mean that is the thing to consider. Is obviously that there are problems with the game on vanilla PS4s and PC, right? But consider that Hyrule Warriors had the exact same problem, but with the 3DSs. So it had the old 3DS platform, and then they had the new 3DS platform, where Hyrule Warriors was basically only played on new 3DS. So it was one of the few games that couldn't go back and forth between the two. But yeah, it's one of those. So it's not unique to Koei Tecmo. It's not unique to the industry. But I wonder how well it's going to be received, or people are just going to either skip it away for Empires. But the hardcore community will still buy it because the Dynasty Warriors fans are crazy.
And what is it about Dynasty Warriors that drives the Dynasty Warriors fans? So because like this is a franchise that's been going for more than 9 games, mind you, and like to the outsider, there doesn't seem to be too much in terms of grand evolution.
Every couple of years, it kind of like FIFA. Every couple of years there is a grand evolution. So Dynasty Warriors.
No, that's
6,
Pro Evolution. That's something entirely different.
That's Konami anyway. So every couple of years they bring out one that kind of changes the formula, tweaks the formula. So 6 was pretty big departure from the previous, and 9 obviously being the open world game, it's a pretty different thing. So basically, people know what they're getting. It's easy to play. It's great fun just like carving through all these people. I don't know. I think it's just it's comfort food. It's mashed potatoes. It's you know what I mean?
Well,
like,
it definitely is mashed after you've done your like 1,000 kill combo
yeah,
or something like that.
Kill 1,000 random Zhonga and like so I think genuinely that's what it is, and I think also as well the same people who buy Dynasty Warriors 9 Raw will usually buy Empires. Will usually buy all the other ones that come out. So they can't help themselves. I don't know. It's like Monster Hunter, man. Monster Hunter's the same thing. So
it's like Yakuza. It's like us Persona fans.
Yeah.
Like we'll buy anything, even a dancing game. Although to be fair, I am keening up for Dancing Star 9.
Right, yeah. Look, and I mean, Persona character even making it into the Arxis tag game. So it's anyway.
Yeah.
But as far as the episode goes, I think that's about it.
Yes. So tune in next week when we'll probably cover more Japanese stuff because that's just our jam. But until then, visit our website at www.newgameplus.tv.
And don't forget Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch at New Game Plus TV.
Also our Instagram, and you never know, we might create a Vero account too, we might have a Pinterest account, who knows? Social media, but also our website. So until next week, thank you very much, Jason.
Thank you, Donald.
I've been Donald, and do watch us and tune in next week. Industry, so that we can make the best games in the world.
Cool. So we would have cut after that. I had a stroke.